The maid hid her baby under the hospital bed, and what happened next left scientists speechless. The words echo like a thunderclap in the middle of a storm, a story so unbelievable that it feels as though it belongs to the realm of miracles rather than everyday life. Yet this is not fantasy. It is a tale of desperation, of love stronger than fear, and of a moment that would forever alter the destiny of a millionaire lying unconscious, his life hanging by a fragile thread. Hi, I'm John Parker, and today's story will touch your heart. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give your like. It's very important to me. And tell me in the comments which city or country you're listening from. The hospital in Dallas, Texas was sterile and cold, filled with the mechanical hum of machines that measured life second by second. Behind the closed doors of room 412, a man of wealth and influence lay still on a hospital bed. His name was Richard Alden, a 48-year-old millionaire known for his ruthless business empire and his impenetrable pride. To the outside world, he was untouchable. But now, as monitors beeped weekly, Richard was nothing more than a fragile body caught between life and death, and kneeling at his bedside was a woman the world rarely noticed. Her name was Elena Marquez, a maid of Mexican descent in her late 20s. She wore the navy blue uniform she had grown accustomed to, with bright yellow gloves still clinging to her trembling hands. She was not supposed to be there. Maids didn't belong in intensive care rooms reserved for millionaires, yet Elena carried with her a secret so heavy it pushed her into the shadows of forbidden places. Wrapped in her arms, hidden beneath the hospital bed, was her infant son, Mateo. Elena's eyes were swollen from tears. She whispered prayers in Spanish, her lips trembling as she held Mateo closer to her chest. Por favor, Dios. Please, God, let him see. She wasn't praying for herself. She wasn't even praying for Richard, the man she cleaned up after for years. She was praying for something deeper, something she didn't dare speak aloud, a truth buried within her that no one could ever suspect. Doctors had already given up. Richard's condition was critical. The chances of recovery were almost non-existent. Science, logic, and reason all agreed. There was nothing more to be done. But Elena refused to leave. She believed that somehow, some way, Mateo's presence mattered. She believed her baby's small heartbeat, his tiny breath, carried a power that machines couldn't measure. The nurses passed by, shaking their heads. Some thought Elena was delusional, clinging to superstition. Others pitied her, a poor maid who had lost all sense of boundaries. But what they didn't know was that Elena had a reason to keep Mateo close to Richard's bed. A reason tied to a secret that could shatter reputations and rewrite everything the Alden family believed about their patriarch. In that cold hospital room, two worlds collided. The sterile, logical world of doctors and the invisible, unexplainable force of human connection. Mateo stirred, reaching his tiny hand toward the millionaire's still fingers. The air seemed to change, as if the room itself was holding its breath. And in that very moment, something happened that no medical textbook could ever explain. The silence inside room 412 was broken only by the steady beep of the monitor. Richard Alden's chest rose and fell faintly, as if he were clinging to life by sheer will. But what the doctors did not see, and what science would never predict, was the way his fingers twitched the moment little Mateo's hand brushed against them. It was so slight, almost imperceptible, but to Elena it was a sign. Her breath caught in her throat. "Did you see that?" she whispered, her voice hoarse. But the doctors, buried in their charts and exhausted from the weight of lost battles, ignored her. To them, Richard Alden was a body waiting for a final declaration, a signature on a piece of paper. To Elena, he was something else entirely. Elena wasn't just a maid who happened to wander into that room. For years, she had worked in Richard's mansion in Highland Park, dusting the chandeliers, scrubbing the marble floors, serving coffee in silence while the world of wealth paraded before her eyes. She had heard whispers of betrayals behind closed doors, arguments between Richard and his estranged wife, Catherine, and she had watched the loneliness settle deep into the man's eyes whenever he thought no one was looking. But Eleanor had a secret of her own. Mateo wasn't just her son. He was the living proof of a night that had changed her life forever. A night when lines blurred, when sorrow met compassion, when the distance between a powerful millionaire and a forgotten maid dissolved into a moment of reckless vulnerability. No one knew, not the doctors, not Catherine. Not the Alden heirs fighting over their father's empire. And if Elena had her way, no one would ever know. Yet here she was, on her knees in the sterile room, bringing Matteo into Richard's presence as though fate demanded it. A nurse entered, startled to see her cradling the child under the bed. "Ma'am, you can't be here with that baby," she said sternly. Eleanor's heart pounded. She clutched Matteo tighter, ready to be thrown out when something happened that froze the nurse in her tracks. The monitor's line spiked. Richard's hand shifted, not from a spasm but in a deliberate movement, weak yet undeniable. His lips parted, a faint murmur escaping, though no one could understand the words. The nurse gasped, nearly dropping her clipboard. "Doctor, come quickly!" Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. She whispered again, this time directly into Richard's ear, her voice trembling. "He's here, Richard. He's here with you." And though Richard's eyes remained closed, a single tear rolled down his pale cheek. The doctors rushed in, confused and alarmed. Machines hummed, papers flew, and commands echoed through the sterile corridor. "We're seeing neural activity," one doctor exclaimed. Another adjusted the monitors, muttering, "This shouldn't be happening." His brain activity was flat for days. Elena held Matteo close, her body shaking. She knew what the doctors didn't, that this wasn't science, this wasn't medicine. This was something no one could calculate. This was the power of a truth long buried, forcing its way into the light. And yet the more the monitors lit up, the more danger Elena felt. Because if Richard woke up, if he spoke, then the secret she had guarded with her life might not stay hidden for long. The baby stirred again, cooing softly, and for a fleeting second Elena wondered, was Matteo here to save his father's life? Or to destroy hers? The news spread through the hospital like wildfire. Richard Alden showed signs of neural activity, a nurse whispered to another in the hallway. Doctors hurried in and out of room 4 and 12, baffled by the sudden changes in their patient's condition. Charts were updated, tests ordered, and theories exchanged. Some claimed it was a coincidence. Others spoke of unexplained anomalies. But all of them agreed on one thing. The timing was impossible to ignore. Elena sat in the corner of the room, clutching Matteo close against her chest, rocking him gently as the chaos unfolded. Every cry from the baby made her pulse race, fearful that someone would question his presence, that someone would ask why this maid had brought a child into the sterile domain of machines and millionaires. And then it happened. The door opened, and in swept Catherine Alden, Richard's estranged wife. Dressed impeccably in a cream-colored suit, her blonde hair pinned tightly, she looked less like a grieving spouse and more like a woman preparing to reclaim her throne. She was trailed by Richard's 2 adult children, Jonathan, a sharp, calculating lawyer in his 30s, and Claire, a 25-year-old socialite with a reputation for scandal. "What is this nonsense I hear about Richard moving his hand?" Catherine's voice sliced through the room like glass. Her icy blue eyes swept across the scene, narrowing when they landed on Eleanor. "And what," she sneered, "is she doing here?" The doctors exchanged uneasy glances. "Mrs. Alden," one of them began carefully, "your husband displayed unexpected activity. We are monitoring the situation." "Unexpected activity," Catherine snapped. "He's been in a coma for weeks. Don't play games with me. And why is the maid holding a baby in this room? This is outrageous." Elena's throat tightened. She lowered her gaze, clutching Matteo tighter. "Please, Mrs. Alden, Silence," Catherine barked. Her heels clicked against the polished floor as she approached. "You think I don't know what you're doing? You're trying to draw attention to yourself, to make this about you." She leaned closer, her perfume sharp, her words dripping with venom. "You don't belong here." Jonathan folded his arms, studying Elena with a lawyer's suspicion. "Mother, perhaps we should ask why she brought a child into this room. Hospital policy would never allow it." His voice was cool, precise, each syllable sharpened like a blade. Claire, on the other hand, tilted her head, her eyes narrowing on Matteo. "What a pretty little boy," she said softly, almost mockingly. Then, with a smirk, she added, "He doesn't look much like you, Elena, but he does look familiar." Elena's heart stopped. A cold shiver ran down her spine. Claire's words lingered in the air like smoke, dangerous and suffocating. The doctors tried to intervene, urging the family to step outside while they performed additional scans. But Catherine was relentless. She turned to the head physician. "I want her and that child removed immediately. If Richard is waking up, this is a medical matter, not some charity show." Before anyone could move, the monitor beeped louder. Richard's body shifted again, his hand trembling against the sheets. A low sound escaped his throat. A groan, weak, but undeniably real. Everyone froze. Jonathan's eyes widened. Claire's smirk vanished. Catherine clutched her handbag tightly, her knuckles white. "And Elena?" Elena dared to step forward, her voice breaking with both fear and hope. "He's trying to speak," she whispered. The doctors rushed to his side, adjusting the equipment, shining a light into his eyes. "Mr. Alden, can you hear us?" "Richard?" And then, for the briefest of moments, his lips formed a single word. It was so faint. Elena almost thought she imagined it. But no, she heard it, clear enough to shake the foundations of her soul. "Matteo." Gasps filled the room. Catherine's eyes widened in horror. Jonathan stiffened. Claire's jaw dropped. Elena's knees went weak. The secret she had carried for months, the truth she had buried deep, had just been whispered into the air for everyone to hear. The millionaire, lying between life and death, had spoken the name of her child. The room froze in stunned silence. The faint word still hung in the air, Matteo. It was impossible, unexplainable, yet undeniable. The unconscious millionaire, whose brain activity had been nearly non-existent, had just whispered the name of the maid's baby. Catherine Alden's face hardened, her icy blue eyes burning with rage. "What did he just say?" She hissed, her voice low but venomous. Did he call out the name of that child?" Jonathan, ever the lawyer, adjusted his tie and spoke with measured suspicion. "It seems we all heard the same thing, Mother. He said Matteo." His eyes cut sharply toward Elena, dissecting every tremble in her hands, every bead of sweat on her brow. "And that, I think, requires an explanation." Eleanor's knees threatened to give out beneath her. She pressed Matteo closer, the baby squirming against her chest, sensing his mother's fear. Her lips trembled, but no words came. What could she say? How could she explain the impossible truth? Claire let out a laugh, bitter and sharp. "Oh, this is rich," she sneered. "The maid sneaks her baby into my father's hospital room, and suddenly he wakes up long enough to say the child's name. Don't you see what's happening here?" She turned to the doctors, her voice dripping with contempt. "She's manipulating him. She's been manipulating him all along. That's absurd." Helena burst out, her voice cracking under the weight of panic. "I've done nothing but care for this family." "You seduced him," Catherine snapped, her words like daggers. "That's what you did, didn't you? You wormed your way into his life, into his weakness, and now you parade this baby as if it has some claim to his name. Shameful." The words cut deep, but what frightened Elena more than Catherine's venom was the growing suspicion in Jonathan's eyes. He wasn't dismissing the possibility, he was calculating it, weighing its implications like a chess player studying the board. "Mother," Jonathan said coldly, "if this child is truly connected to father in the way his words suggest, then everything changes. The will, the inheritance, the company, everything." Catherine stiffened, realizing the threat. "Don't you dare!" she snapped. "Don't even suggest such madness. That child is nothing. She is nothing." But before the argument could spiral further, Richard stirred again. His body shifted, his chest rising with effort, his lips forming broken syllables. Doctors swarmed, adjusting machines, urging silence. Helena leaned forward, heart pounding. "Richard," one doctor said urgently, "if you can hear us, try to say something again." His lips moved, dry and pale, and this time the word was clearer, stronger. "Matteo, mine." The room erupted. Gasps, shouts, chaos. Catherine's face went ashen. Jonathan's composure cracked and Claire's hands flew to her mouth. Elena nearly collapsed, tears burning her eyes. He had said it. He had confirmed it. In front of everyone, the doctors scribbled notes, muttering in disbelief. "There's no medical explanation. He hasn't responded in weeks." And now, Catherine turned on Elena, fury radiating from every line of her face. "Get out. Get out now," she screamed. "You and that child will not destroy this family. Not while I breathe." Two security guards, alerted by the commotion, appeared at the door. Jonathan gestured to them with a cold nod. "Escort her out, immediately!" Elena clutched Matteo desperately, backing away, her voice breaking. Please, just let me stay. He needs us. He needs his son. Son? Catherine's voice was sharp with venom. Don't you dare use that word. That child will never be acknowledged as an Alden. Never. The guards moved closer, and Elena's pulse hammered in her ears. She could feel the walls closing in, her secret unraveling faster than she could hold it together. But as they reached for her, Richard's monitors spiked again. His heart rate climbed, alarms blaring, his lips moving once more. Doctors rushed, shouting commands, trying to stabilize him. And in the chaos, Elena heard it again, faint but unmistakable. Elena, don't let them. Her blood turned cold. Richard wasn't just calling for Matteo, he was calling for her. He was pleading with her to fight, and in that instant, Elena realized that she wasn't just protecting her baby anymore. She was protecting the dying millionaire's last wish. Elena's cries echoed down the sterile corridors as the security guards gripped her arms and pulled her away from room 412. Matteo whimpered in her embrace, his tiny fingers clutching her blouse as though he understood the danger closing in around them. Please, don't do this, Elena sobbed, her voice cracking. He asked for me, he asked for us. You heard him. But Catherine Alden's voice followed like a dagger, cold and unrelenting. Enough, take her out. If she tries to come back, I'll have her arrested. The guards didn't hesitate. The doors slammed shut behind her, leaving Elena standing in the hospital's main lobby, trembling with rage and despair. The glossy tiles beneath her feet seemed to mock her, reflecting her tear-streaked face and the fragile bundle in her arms. People stared, nurses, visitors, strangers passing through. To them, she was just a maid having a breakdown, clutching a baby she had no business bringing into such a place. No one knew the storm raging inside her heart. No one knew the truth that had just slipped from Richard's lips. She sank into a chair, rocking Matteo as tears blurred her vision. What am I going to do, mi amorcito? She whispered to him. They'll destroy us if they find out. They'll take everything from us. For years, Elena had lived in silence, bearing the weight of her secret. She had told herself she could endure it, that Matteo didn't need acknowledgement, that love was enough. But now Richard had spoken. He had called Matteo his own, and that single word had unleashed a fury in the Alden family that could not be contained. Elena? The voice startled her. She looked up and her breath caught. Standing a few feet away was Dr. Samuel Hayes, Richard's longtime physician. He was in his 50s, with kind eyes behind his glasses, and a weariness etched into his face from decades of battles with illness and loss. Dr. Hayes, Eleanor whispered, rising nervously. I didn't mean to cause trouble. He shook his head, lowering his voice so others wouldn't hear. I know, and I also know what I saw. Richard responded the moment your child touched him. That's not coincidence. Her eyes filled again with tears. They won't let me stay. Catherine hates me. Jonathan. He looks at me like I'm an enemy. And Claire. Claire is dangerous, Hayes interrupted firmly. She'll use this against you if she can. But Eleanor. He leaned closer, his tone urgent. You can't leave Dallas. Richard's condition is changing, and I believe your presence, your child's presence, is part of it. I don't know how, but something extraordinary is happening. Elena clutched Matteo tighter, fear battling with hope. If they find out the truth. Hayes placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Then you must be ready, because secrets don't stay buried forever, and Richard may not have much time left. His words sent a chill through her. Was this a warning, or was it a promise? Before she could respond, a sharp voice cut through the lobby. Dr. Hayes. Jonathan Alden stood a few feet away, his suit immaculate, his expression unreadable. His eyes flicked from Elena to Matteo, then back to the doctor. A word in private. Hayes gave Eleanor a subtle nod. Go home, keep your child safe, and be ready for what comes next. As he walked away with Jonathan, Elena's heart pounded. She could see it now, the war brewing behind the Alden name, inheritance, reputation, power, and she was caught in the middle with a secret that could either destroy her or set her free. Outside, the Texas sky burned with the orange glow of sunset. Elena stepped into the evening air, the weight of destiny pressing down on her shoulders. She whispered to Matteo as she kissed his forehead, her voice trembling. Your father called for you, mi niño, and now they'll stop at nothing to silence us. But what Elena didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Catherine Alden was already making calls. And the plan she was setting into motion would not only threaten Elena's life, but Matteo's as well. Catherine Alden's heels clicked sharply against the marble floor of her penthouse suite in downtown Dallas. From the wide glass windows, the city sparkled with evening lights, but her mind was consumed by fury. Her husband had dared, even in his coma, to acknowledge that Maid's child. And worse, he had done it in front of everyone. Matteo, she muttered under her breath, pouring herself a glass of expensive Bordeaux. He said, Matteo, that boy's name will never stain this family, never. Her phone buzzed. Catherine picked it up and spoke in a hushed, cold tone. It's time. I want everything about Elena Marquez dug up. Her past, her immigration status, her finances. I don't care how much it costs. I want her destroyed before she even dares to breathe a word of her so-called truth. On the other end of the line, a man's gravelly voice replied, Consider it done. She won't see it coming. Catherine's lips curved into a smile, thin and ruthless. Good. And if she refuses to leave quietly, then we'll make sure the law has reason to take her child away. Permanently. Meanwhile, across town, Eleanor sat in her small apartment on the outskirts of Oak Cliff. The room was dim, the wallpaper peeling, a far cry from the luxury she had spent years cleaning in the Alden mansion. Matteo slept soundly in a crib beside her, his tiny chest rising and falling peacefully. But Elena couldn't rest. Her mind replayed Richard's voice over and over. Matteo, mine. She pressed her hands to her face, torn between relief and terror. Dios mío, she whispered. He said it. He claimed you, Matteo, but now, what happens to us? A knock at the door startled her. She froze, instinctively pulling Matteo into her arms before peering through the peephole. It was Dr. Hayes. She exhaled with shaky relief and opened the door. Doctor, she began, but his urgent expression silenced her. They're moving fast, Elena, he said in a low voice as he stepped inside. Catherine has influence. If she digs deep enough, she'll find ways to smear you, to take your child. She's ruthless. Elena's throat tightened. She can't. Matteo is mine. He's my life. Hayes's eyes softened, but his voice remained steady. Listen to me. Richard is stronger than they realize. If he wakes fully, he may confirm everything. But until then, you need protection. Stay quiet. Don't confront them. And don't let anyone take Matteo. Elena nodded, though fear gnawed at her. She had never felt so powerless, so cornered. Yet she knew Hayes was right. One wrong move and she could lose everything. But across the city, Jonathan Alden was having his own private conversation with a judge. Documents were being drawn, orders prepared. Catherine had whispered poison into his ear, and now the law itself was being twisted into a weapon against Elena. She's unstable, Jonathan argued calmly over dinner with the family's attorney. Bringing a child into a sterile hospital room, trespassing into restricted areas, it's all evidence of negligence. She's not fit to be a mother? And the inheritance? The attorney asked. Jonathan's lips thinned. If that child is proven to be my father's, everything changes. We cannot let that happen. Ever. Back in her apartment, Elena rocked Matteo, oblivious to the machinery of power moving against her. She whispered softly to him in Spanish, her voice breaking. No importa lo que digan. Tú eres mi milagro. Nadie podrá arrancarte de mí. But as she spoke, headlights flickered outside her window. A black sedan idled at the corner, its occupants watching her apartment in silence. And inside that car, Catherine Alden's voice rang out cold and decisive. If the courts fail, we'll handle it another way. No one will ever know the truth. Morning sunlight crept through the blinds of Elena's modest apartment, but it brought no warmth. She had barely slept, her mind replaying every word Catherine spat at her in the hospital, every calculating glance Jonathan cast her way. Matteo stirred in his crib, his innocent smile a stark contrast to the storm raging around them. Elena whispered, We'll be okay, mi amor. I won't let them take you. But even as she spoke the words, a sharp knock rattled her door. She froze. No one ever came this early. Her heart pounded as she tiptoed to the peephole. 2 uniformed officers stood outside, their hands clasped behind their backs. Elena Marquez? One of them called firmly. We have a court order. Open the door. Her blood ran cold. She scooped Matteo into her arms, clutching him so tightly he whimpered. Court order? No. No, this can't be happening. The knock grew louder, more insistent. Miss Marquez, if you don't open this door, we will be forced to enter. Tears welled in her eyes. She swung the door open, her voice trembling. Please, I don't understand. What is this about? One officer handed her a folded document. Elena's hands shook as she opened it. Words blurred through her tears. Negligence, endangerment, unfit parent. Temporary custody review. No, she gasped, clutching Mateo tighter. This is a lie. I would never harm my child. The officer's tone was professional, almost detached. We're required to escort the child for evaluation. You'll have a hearing scheduled in the coming days. Elena's legs nearly gave out. She sank to her knees, sobbing. Please, he's all I have. Don't take him. The baby cried loudly, his tiny hands reaching for her face. The sound pierced the room like a knife. Just then, another voice rang out from the hallway. Wait! Stop this! It was Dr. Hayes. He stepped forward, his presence commanding, his eyes blazing with defiance. You can't do this. This order is premature. I know exactly who is behind it. He turned to the officers, lowering his voice. You're being manipulated. This is not about child safety. It's about money and power. One officer hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. Doctor, we have procedures. Hayes cut him off. Procedures don't justify tearing a baby from his mother without evidence. Elena is not unfit. She is the only person keeping Richard Alden alive with her presence and that child's. I'll testify to it myself. The officers exchanged uneasy glances. Finally, one sighed and relented. We'll note your objection, Doctor. But the order stands. She must appear in court. For now, she can keep the child. Elena nearly collapsed with relief, clutching Mateo as though her life depended on it. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you. But Hayes's expression was grim. He waited until the officers left, then closed the door behind them. This is only the beginning, Elena. Catherine and Jonathan won't stop until they bury you. You need to be ready. They will twist every law, every connection, to strip you of Mateo and silence you forever. Eleanor's hands trembled as she kissed Mateo's forehead. Why are they so afraid of us? Hayes hesitated, then spoke softly. Because if Richard wakes up and confirms what we all know in our hearts, then Mateo isn't just your son. He's their heir. And that means billions. The words struck Elena like lightning. The room spun around her. She had always known the truth in her soul, but hearing it aloud made it real. Mateo wasn't just a secret. He was the Alden family's greatest threat, and outside the black sedan returned idling once more. This time a camera lens peeked from the window, capturing Eleanor's every move. Evidence was being collected, a trap being set. Catherine's voice echoed in Elena's mind. He will never be acknowledged as an Alden. Never. Elena realized that her fight wasn't just for love anymore. It was for survival. The hum of the ceiling fan was the only sound in Elena's apartment that night. Mateo slept in his crib, his little fists curled, his breathing soft and steady. Elena sat by the window, her body stiff with fear, her eyes locked on the street below. The same black sedan had returned, parked under the flickering streetlight. Whoever was inside wasn't even hiding anymore. They wanted her to know she was being watched. She whispered to herself, her voice trembling, "They're going to take him from me. They're going to destroy us." Her phone buzzed on the table. It was Dr. Hayes. She picked it up quickly. "Elena," his voice came low and urgent, "listen to me. I've been digging through the hospital files. There are irregularities, transfers of funds, altered medical records. Catherine is paying people to make Richard's condition look worse than it is. If she succeeds, the courts will declare him permanently incapacitated, and she will gain full control of his estate. Do you understand? That's why she's silencing you. If Richard wakes, her empire collapses." Elena's heart thudded. "Then I have to prove it. I can't just sit here." Hayes hesitated. "It's dangerous. Catherine has eyes everywhere." "I don't care," Elena said firmly, surprising herself with the strength in her voice. "So I've lived my whole life being invisible, cleaning floors, scrubbing marble, bowing my head. But now I have a son, and if I don't fight, they'll erase him from history as if he never existed." She hung up, determination burning in her chest. She opened an old wooden box she kept hidden in the back of her closet. Inside lay a bundle of letters, Richard's handwriting, written months before his accident. Letters of regret, of loneliness, confessions he had never dared speak aloud. One in particular made her hands tremble. I never thought a maid would be the only person to see me as a man, not a fortune. That night with you, Elena, I felt human again. If anything happens to me, know that you gave me the only real moment of peace I've had in years." Tears blurred her vision. She pressed the letter to her chest. Proof. Proof that Richard had loved her, if only for one fragile night. Proof that Matteo wasn't an accident. He was chosen. The next morning, Elena walked into the hospital with her head held higher than ever before. Nurses whispered, some offering sympathetic glances, others looking away in fear of Catherine's wrath. But Elena didn't care. She carried the letter in her purse, a weapon she was ready to use if necessary. As she approached Richard's room, she stopped. Catherine was inside, speaking in hushed tones to one of the doctors. Eleanor lingered in the hallway, straining to hear. "Accelerate the process," Catherine was saying sharply. "I don't care if it looks unethical. I want that declaration signed within the week. My husband is gone, and I won't have vultures circling." Elena's stomach twisted. Accelerate the process? Was she pushing to have Richard declared legally dead? Before she could step back, Catherine's eyes darted to the doorway. She saw Elena. Their gazes locked. Catherine's cold and venomous, Elena's burning with defiance. "You again," Catherine spat, striding toward her. "You're like a shadow that won't disappear. Let me make this very clear. If you try to use that child to stake a claim, I will bury you so deep the world will forget you ever existed." Eleanor's hand tightened around the strap of her purse. She wanted to pull out the letter, to throw Richard's words in Catherine's face, but instinct told her this wasn't the moment. Not yet. Instead, she met Catherine's glare with steady eyes. "You're afraid," she said quietly. "That's why you're doing this. Because deep down you know the truth." Catherine's jaw tightened, her mask slipping for just a second. Then she turned and swept away, her heels clicking like gunshots against the polished floor. Elena exhaled shakily, her entire body trembling. She had just stared into the eyes of her enemy, and not broken. For the first time in years she felt powerful, but as she turned back toward Richard's bed, her blood ran cold. Jonathan was standing there, arms folded, his face unreadable. He had heard everything. "Interesting," he murmured, his voice like silk hiding steel. "Very interesting." Elena's pulse quickened. Jonathan wasn't his mother. He was colder, smarter, more dangerous. And in his eyes she saw calculation, the mind of a man already deciding whether she was a threat to be eliminated, or a weapon to be used. Elena's breath caught as Jonathan Alden stepped forward from the shadows of his father's hospital room. His suit was immaculate, his posture perfect, but his eyes, those cold, calculating eyes, were the sharpest weapon in the room. "You've been busy," he said softly, almost conversationally. "Sneaking letters, sneaking babies, sneaking truths that were never meant to see daylight." Elena clutched her purse tighter, every nerve in her body on edge. "I don't know what you think you've heard." Jonathan's lips curved in a smile that never touched his eyes. "Don't insult me. I heard enough. Mother may be blinded by rage, but I deal in facts. And the fact is this. My father whispered that child's name. Twice he called him Matteo, and if he wakes up fully, everything changes. My inheritance, my company, my future." He moved closer, lowering his voice until it was almost intimate. "You see, Elena, I don't despise you. I actually admire you. Do you know how rare it is for someone like you, a maid invisible to the world, to shake the foundations of a dynasty? It's almost impressive." Eleanor's throat tightened. "If you admire me so much, then why are you trying to destroy me?" "Because admiration doesn't pay the bills," Jonathan said coolly. "And sentiment doesn't keep control of Alden Enterprises. You hold a secret that can topple everything. And that, Elena, makes you either my greatest enemy or my most valuable ally." Her stomach churned. "Ally?" Jonathan's gaze sharpened. "Yes, I can protect you from my mother's wrath. I can make sure no court ever takes your child away. I can even ensure Matteo grows up with privileges you could never dream of. But in return, you must give me something." Elena's pulse raced. "What do you want?" He leaned in, his voice a whisper. "Silence. If my father wakes and tries to claim Matteo, you will deny it. You will insist he was delirious. You will burn every letter, every shred of evidence. In exchange, I will keep you safe. Refuse, and I will unleash a war you cannot win." Tears stung Elena's eyes. "You're asking me to erase my son's identity, to pretend he doesn't belong to his father, Jonathan's smile was cold. I'm asking you to survive. Choose carefully. The air in the room grew heavy, suffocating. Elena could feel her heart pounding against her ribs, Mateo's future hanging in the balance. For a brief second, she thought of agreeing, of sacrificing truth for safety, but then her hand brushed against Richard's letter inside her purse, and her spine straightened. No, she said firmly, her voice trembling but unbreakable. Mateo deserves his name. His truth. I won't let you bury him just to protect your fortune. Jonathan's smile vanished. His eyes darkened like a storm brewing. Then you've chosen war. Before Elena could respond, Richard's monitor beeped loudly. His body convulsed slightly, his lips moving with effort. Nurses rushed in, shouting commands, adjusting wires and machines, and in the chaos Richard's voice broke through, clearer than before, raspy but undeniable. Elena. Matteo, mine. Gasps filled the room. The doctors froze, stunned. Elena covered her mouth with her hand, tears spilling down her cheeks. Richard wasn't delirious. He was fighting his way back to the surface, and with every word he was confirming the truth. Jonathan's jaw clenched, his mask cracking for the first time. He stepped back, his fists tightening. Catherine stormed in moments later, her face pale with fury. What's happening? She demanded. The doctor stammered. He's responding. He's stronger than we thought. Catherine's eyes darted to Elena, blazing with hatred. Jonathan turned away, silent, his mind racing, and Elena, clutching Matteo, felt a surge of hope so powerful it nearly lifted her off the ground. But she knew this wasn't over. Richard was alive, yes, but the war for his voice, his truth, and his heir had just begun. The air in room 412 vibrated with tension. Machines beeped frantically. Doctors barked orders, and Catherine's sharp voice cut through like a knife. But all of it faded the moment Richard Alden's lips moved again. Elena, Matteo, mine. This time his eyes fluttered open, weak, clouded, but undeniably awake. Gasps rippled through the room. Catherine stumbled back, pale as marble, her manicured hand clutching the wall. Jonathan's face hardened, his perfect mask fracturing. Claire covered her mouth, tears springing to her eyes despite herself. Elena's knees buckled. She clutched Matteo tighter, sobbing uncontrollably. After weeks of silence, after endless threats and humiliation, Richard had spoken the truth, not in private, not in whispers, but in front of them all. The doctors leaned over him, astonished. Mr. Alden, can you hear us? Squeeze my hand if you can. Richard's trembling fingers closed weakly around the doctor's palm. The room erupted in disbelief. A man declared nearly lost to science had returned, but Catherine wasn't finished. Rage twisted her features as she stormed to the bedside. Richard, listen to me. You're confused. This woman, this maid, is poisoning your mind. That child isn't yours. He's nothing to you. Richard's eyes shifted, slowly, deliberately, until they found Elena. His lips curved into the faintest smile. His voice cracked but carried a clarity no one could deny. She is the only one who never left me. And Matteo is my son. The words struck like thunder. Catherine staggered back as if slapped. Jonathan's jaw clenched, veins bulging in his temple. Claire let out a sob and turned away. Elena pressed a trembling hand to her mouth, tears flooding her face. Richard? The doctors scribbled furiously, noting every word. The monitors showed stabilization, a man fighting his way back to life. Science had no explanation, but the truth was undeniable. Catherine lashed out desperately. No, he's delirious. He doesn't know what he's saying. Dr. Hayes stepped forward, his voice firm. On the contrary, his neural activity proves he's regaining full awareness. This is not delirium. This is clarity. Jonathan's eyes locked on Elena, cold and merciless. If you think this is over, you're wrong. Courts can be bought. Documents can vanish. I will not let you destroy everything I've built. But Richard's voice, weak yet resolute, cut through his son's threat. You already destroyed it, Jonathan. With your greed. With your lies. Elena, Matteo, they're my family now. Silence fell. The dynasty Richard had built, the empire fueled by ambition, was now being claimed by a truth hidden under a hospital bed. Catherine's face twisted with hatred, but there was nothing left to say. The evidence was undeniable. The doctors had witnessed it. Hayes had documented it. And Richard himself, against every medical expectation, had spoken his heart. Elena stepped forward, holding Matteo toward him. For the first time, Richard's trembling hand reached for the child, brushing his tiny cheek. Tears glistened in his weary eyes. "Forgive me," he whispered. "For not protecting you sooner," Matteo cooed, clutching his father's finger. And in that moment, the cold hospital room filled with something no machine could measure. Redemption. Elena wept openly, her body trembling with relief. Against all odds, against betrayal and schemes, truth had survived. But as Catherine stormed out of the room and Jonathan followed with dark silence, Elena knew their fight wasn't over. The Aldens would not surrender easily. There would be lawyers, threats, battles still to come, yet none of it mattered now. For the first time, Elena didn't feel invisible. She felt seen. She felt powerful. And she knew Matteo would grow up with a name, a legacy, and the love of a father who had fought through the darkness to claim him. I'm John Parker, and remember, every story hides a truth. If this story touched your heart, let us know in the comments which city or country you're listening from. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give your like. It helps us share more stories with people all around the world.